Languages of the Indo-European family are classified as either Centum languages or Satem languages according to how the dorsal consonants of the reconstructed Proto-Indo-European language developed. An example of the different developments is provided by the words for 100 found in the earlier attested Indo-European languages. In Centum languages, they typically began with a k sound, but in Satem languages, they often began with per second. The table below shows the traditional reconstruction of the pi dorsal consonants, with 3 series, but according to some more recent theories there may actually have been only 2 series or 3 series with different pronunciations from those traditionally ascribed. In Centum languages, the palatal velars, which included the initial consonant of the 100 root, merged with the plain velars. In Satem languages, they remain distinct, and the labial velars merge with the plain velars. The Centum-Satem division forms an isogloss in synchronic descriptions of Indo-European languages. However, it has rarely been proposed as a genuine phylogenetic division of the diachronic development of the Indo-European phylum. It is not thought that by split into a Centum branch and a Satem branch from which all the Centum and all the Satem languages, respectively, would have derived. Such a division is made particularly unlikely by the discovery that while the Satem group lies generally to the east and the Centum group to the west, the most eastward of the known IE language branches, Tocharian, is Centum. Each of the 10 branches of the Indo-European family independently developed its status as a Centum or Satem language. Centum languages. The canonical Centum languages of the Indo-European family of the Western branches, Hellenic, Celtic, Italic and Germanic. It merged Proto-Indo-European palatal velars and plain velars, yielding plain velars only, but retained the labial velars as a distinct set. The Anatolian branch likely falls outside the Centum-Satem dichotomy. For instance, Lu1 indicates that all 3 dorsal consonant rows were maintained separately in Proto-Anatolian. The centumization observed in Hittite is therefore assumed to have occurred only after the breakup of Proto-Anatolian. While Tocharian is generally regarded as a Centum language, it is a special case, as it has merged all 3 of the pi dorsal series into a single phoneme *k. According to some scholars, that complicates the classification of Tocharian within the Centum-Satem model. However, as Tocharian has replaced some Proto-Indo-European labial velars with the labial velar-like non-original sequence *q, it has been proposed that labial velars were still distinct in Proto-Tocharian, which places Tocharian in the Centum group. In the Centum languages, pi roots reconstructed with palatal velars developed into forms with plain velars. For example, in the pi root *km tom 100, the initial palatal velar *k became a plain velar k, as in Latin centum, Greek katon, Welsh can, Tocharian bicante. In the Germanic languages, the k developed regularly by Grimm's law to become parauer, as in the English Hund. Centum languages also retained the distinction between the pi labial velar row and the plain velars. Historically, it was unclear whether the labial velar row was innervated by a process of labialization, or it was inherited from the parent language. Current mainstream opinion favors the latter possibility. Labial velars as single phonemes as opposed to biphonemes are attested in Greek, Italic, Germanic and Celtic. The Buclow's rule, however, states that a labial velar reduces to a plain velar when it occurs next to *q or *w. The Centum-Satem division refers to the development of the dorsal series at the time of the earliest separation of Proto-Indo-European into the proto-languages of its individual daughter branches. It does not apply to any later analogous developments within any individual branch. For example, the conditional palatalization of Latin k to per second in some Romance languages is Satem-like, as is the merger of *k with *k in the Gaelic languages. Such later changes do not affect the classification of the languages as Centum, Satem languages. The Satem languages belong to the Eastern subfamilies, especially Indo-Iranian and Balto-Slavic. It lost the labial element of Proto-Indo-European labiovelars and merged them with plain velars, but the palatovelars remained distinct and typically came to be realized as sibilants. The set of developments, particularly the assimilation of palatovelars, is referred to as Satemization. The Albanian and Armenian branches are also classified as Satem, but some linguists claim that they show evidence of separate treatment of all three dorsal consonant rows and so may not have merged the labiovelars with the plain velars. Unlike the canonical Satem branches, in Armenian, some assert that k is distinguishable from k before front vowels, but in Albanian, it has been claimed that k and pagram are distinguishable from k and pagram before front vowels. Such incomplete Satemization may also be evidenced by remnants of labial elements from labiovelars in Balto-Slavic, including Lithuanian Ungari's il and lt *anga and digus pointy and lt *deig. A few examples are also claimed in Indo-Iranian, such as Sanskrit guru heavy and lt *gr kulam had and lt *kl, but they may instead be secondary developments, as in the case of guru make and lt *ku, in which it is clear that the ku group arose in post-Rigvedic language. It is also asserted that in Sanskrit and Balto-Slavic, in some environments, resonant consonants become ir after plain velars but after labiovelars. In the Satem languages, the reflexes of the presumed palatovelars are typically fricative or affricate consonants, articulated further forward in the mouth. For example, the pi root *km tom 100, the initial palatovelar normally became a sibilant, or as in Avestan Satem, Persian sad, Sanskrit satam, Latvian sim, Lithuanian simtas, Old Church Slavonic s2. Another example is the Slavic prefix s, which appears in Latin, a Centum language, as co-conjoin is cognate with Russian soyas, and is found for pi *k in such languages as Latvian, Avestan, Russian and Armenian, but Lithuanian and Sanskrit have. For more reflexes, see the phonetic correspondences section below. Note also the effect of the Rookie sound law. Assimilation of velars in certain phonetic environments is a common phenomenon in language development. Consequently, it is sometimes hard to establish firmly the languages that were part of the original Satem diffusion and the ones affected by secondary assimilation later. While extensive documentation of Latin and Old Swedish, for example, shows that the assimilation found in French and Swedish were later developments, there are not enough records of Dacian and Thracian to settle conclusively when the Satem-like features originated. Extensive lexical borrowing, such as Armenian from Iranian, may also add to the difficulty. The status of Armenian as a Satem language as opposed to a Centum language with secondary assimilation rests on the evidence of a very few words. History of concept. Schleicher's single guttural row. August Schleicher, an early Indo-Europeanist, in Part 1, Phonology, of his major work, the 1871 Compendium of Comparative Grammar of the Indo-Germanic Language, published a table of original momentation laut, or stops, which has only a single velar row *k**g*, under the name of guttural. He identifies 4 palatals but hypothesizes that they came from the gutturals along with the nasal *n and the spirant *c. Bergmann's labialized and unlabialized language groups. Carl Bergmann, in his 1886 work Outline of Comparative Grammar of the Indo-Germanic Language, promotes the palatals to the original language, recognizing 2 rows of explosive e, or stops, the palatal and the velar, each of which was simplified to 3 articulations even in the same work. In the same work, Bergmann notices among die velaren Verschlusslaute, the velar stops, a major contrast between reflexes of the same words in different daughter languages. In some L, the velar is marked with a U articulation, which he terms a labialisierung, labialization, in accordance with the prevailing theory that the labiovelars were velars labialized by combination with a U at some later time and were not among the original consonants. He thus divides languages into Die Sprachgruppe mit Labialisierung and Die Sprachgruppe ohne Labialisierung, the language group with labialization, which basically correspond to what would later be termed the Centum and Satem groups. For words and groups of words which do not appear in any language with labialized velar sound, it must for the present be left undecided whether they ever had the U afterclap. The doubt introduced in the passage suggests he already suspected the afterclap U was not that but was part of an original sound. Von Bradke's Centum and Satem groups. In 1890, Peter von Bradke published Concerning Method and Conclusions of Aryan Studies, in which he identified the same division as did Bergmann, but he defined it in a different way. He said that the original Indo-Europeans had 2 kinds of guttural laut, guttural sounds, the guttural oder velar, and dipalatal ra, guttural velar, and palatal rows, each of which were aspirated and unaspirated. The velars were to be viewed as gutturals in an engrossing, narrow sense. They were a reine K laut, pure K sound. Palatals were häufig mit nachfolgender Labialisierung, frequently with subsequent labialization. The latter distinction led him to divide the palatal Reihe into a Gruppe als spirant and a reine K laut, typified by the words Satem and Centum respectively. Later in the book he speaks of an original Centum Gruppe, from which on the north of the Black and Caspian Seas the Satem stammen, Satem tribes, disseminated among the Nomadenvölker, a Steppenvölker, distinguished by further palatalization of the palatal gutturals. Bergmann's identification of labialized and Centum by the 1897 edition of Grundriss. Bergmann had adopted von Bradke's view. The Proto-Indo-European palatals appear in Greek, Italic, Celtic and Germanic as a rule as K sounds, as opposed to in Aryan, Armenian, Albanian, Balto-Slavic, Phrygian and Thracian, for the most part sibilants. There was no more mention of labialized and non-labialized language groups after Bergmann changed his mind regarding the labialized velars. The labio-velars now appeared under that name as one of the 5 rows of Verschlusslaute, comprising dilabial NV, didental NV, dipalatal NV, dirinvelar NV and dilabiovelar NV. It was Bergmann who pointed out that labiovelars had merged into the velars in the Satem group, accounting for the coincidence of the discarded non-labialized group with the Satem group. Discovery of Anatolian and Tocharian. When von Bradke first published his definition of the Centum and Satem sound changes, he viewed his classification as the oldest perceivable division in Indo-European, which he elucidated as a division between Eastern and Western cultural provinces. The proposed split was undermined by the decipherment of Hittite and Tocharian in the early 20th century. Both languages languages show no Satem-like assimilation in spite of being located in the Satem area. The proposed phylogenetic division of Indo-European into Satem and Centum subfamilies was further weakened by the identification of other Indo-European isoglosses running across the Centum-Satem boundary, some of which seemed of equal or greater importance in the development of daughter languages. Consequently, since the early 20th century at least, the Centum-Satem isogloss has been considered an early areal phenomenon rather than a true phylogenetic division of daughter languages. Alternative interpretations. Different realizations. The actual pronunciation of the velar series in Pi is not certain. One current idea is that the palatavelas were in fact simple velars *****, and the plain velars were pronounced farther back, perhaps as uvular consonants ******. If labiovelas were just labialized forms of the plain velars, they would have been pronounced *******. The following are arguments in support of that view. The palatavela series was the most common, and the plain velar was by far the least common and never occurred in any affixes. In known languages with multiple velar series, the normal velar series is usually the most common, which would imply that what have been interpreted as palatavelas were more probably simply velars. There is no evidence of any palatalization in the early history of the velars in the Centum branches, but see above for the case of Anatolian. If the palatavelas were in fact palatalized in Pi, there would have had to be a single, very early, uniform depalatalization in all the Centum branches. Depalatalization is cross-linguistically far less common than is palatalization, and so is unlikely to have occurred separately in each Centum branch. In any case, it would almost certainly have left evidence of prior palatalization in some of the branches. On the above interpretation, the split between the Centum and Satem groups would not have been a straightforward loss of an articulatory feature. Instead, the uvulars **q** would have been fronted to velars across all branches. In the Satem languages, it caused a chain shift, and the existing velars were shifted further forward to avoid a merger, becoming palatal k and gt, c q and gt k. In the Centum languages, no chain shift occurred, and the uvulars merged into the velars. The delabialization in the Satem languages would have occurred later, in a separate stage. Only two velar series. The presence of three dorsal rows in the proto-language has been the mainstream hypothesis since at least the mid-20th century. There remain, however, several alternative proposals with just two rows in the parent language, which describe either Satemization or Centumization as the emergence of a new phonetic category rather than the disappearance of an inherited one. Antoine Millet proposed that the original rows were the labiovelas and palatavelas, with the plain velars being allophones of the palatavelas in some cases, such as depalatalization before a resonant. The etymologies establishing the presence of velars in the parent language are explained as artifacts of either borrowing between daughter languages, or of false etymologies. Other scholars who assume two dorsal rows in Proto-Indo-European include Gurevich and Lehmann, as well as Frederick Cortland and others. The argument is that Pi had only two series, a simple velar and a labiovelar. The Satem languages palatalized the plain velar series in most positions, but the plain velars remained in some environments, typically reconstructed as before or after u after per second, and before a or a, and also before per meter and n in some Baltic dialects. The original allophonic distinction was disturbed when the labiovelas were merged with the plain velars. That produced a new phonemic distinction distinction between palatal and plain velars, with an unpredictable alternation between palatal and plain in related forms of some roots but not others. Subsequent analogical processes generalized either the plain or palatal consonant in all forms of a particular root. The roots in which the plain consonant was generalized are those traditionally reconstructed as having plain velars in the parent language, in contrast to palatal velars. Oswald Cimarroni considers the palatal velars as an innovation, proposing that the preconsonantal palatals probably owe their origin, at least in part, to a lost palatal vowel, and a velar was palatalized by a following vowel subsequently lost. The palatal row would therefore postdate the original velar and labiovelar rows, but Cimarroni is not clear whether that would have happened before or after the breakup of the parent language. Woodhouse introduced epitectal notation, labeling the two rows of dorsals as K1, G1, G1H and K2, G2, G2H. The first row represents prevelars, which developed into either palatal velars or plain velars in the Satem group, but just into plain velars into the Centum group. The second row represents back velars, which developed into either labiovelars or plain velars in the Centum group, but just plain velars in the Satem group. The following are arguments that have been listed in support of a two-series hypothesis. The plain velar series is statistically rarer than the other two, is almost entirely absent from affixes, and appears most often in certain phonological environments. The reconstructed velars and palatal velars occur mostly in complementary distribution. It is unusual in general for palatal velars to move backwards rather than the reverse. In most languages in which the palatal velars produced fricatives, other palatalization also occurred, implying that it was part of a general trend. The Centum languages are not contiguous, and there is no evidence of differences between dialects in the implementation of centumization. This makes a centumization process less likely, implying that the position found in the Centum languages was the original one. Alternations between plain velars and palatals are common in a number of roots across different Satem languages, but the same root appears with a palatal in some languages but a plain velar in others. That is consistent with the analogical generalization of one or another consonant in an originally alternating paradigm, but difficult to explain. Otherwise, the claim that in late Pi times the Satem languages were in close contact with each other is confirmed by independent evidence. The geographical closeness of current Satem languages and certain other shared innovations. Arguments in support of three series. Many instances of plain velars occur in roots that have no evidence of any of the putative environments that trigger plain velars, and no obvious mechanism for the plain velar to have come in contact with any such environment. As a result, the comparative method requires three series to be reconstructed. Albanian and Armenian are said to retain three series. Evidence from the Anatolian language Luwian attests a three-way velar distinction *k and gt, z *k and gt, k *k and gt, ku. There is no evidence of any connection between Luwian and any Satem language, and the Anatolian branch split off very early from Pi. The three-way distinction must be reconstructed for the parent language. Melchert originally claimed that the change *k and gt, z was unconditional, and subsequently revised the assertion to a conditional change occurring only before front vowels, y or with. However, that does not fundamentally alter the situation, as plain velar *k apparently remains as such in the same context. Melchert also asserts, contrary to Ziller, the etymological distinction between *k and *k in the relevant positions is well established. According to Ringe, there are root constraints that prevent the occurrence of a palatal velar and labiovelar, two plain velars, in the same root, but they do not apply to roots containing, for example, a palatal velar and a plain velar. The centum change could have occurred independently in multiple centum subgroups, as it was a phonologically natural change, given the possible interpretation of the palatal velar series as plain velar and the plain velar series as back velar or uvula, given the minimal functional load of the plain velar palatal velar distinction. If there was never any palatalization in the IE dialects leading to the centum languages, there is no reason to expect any palatal residues. Furthermore, it is phonologically entirely natural for a former plain velar versus back velar uvula distinction to have left no distinctive residues on adjacent segments. Phonetic correspondences in daughter languages. The following table summarizes the outcomes of the reconstructed pi palatals and labiovelars in the various daughter branches, both Centum and Satem. Within Celtic, the P-Celtic and Q-Celtic branches have different reflexes of pi *k *equos epos. The Brythonic and Lepontic languages are P-Celtic, Goidelic and Celtiberian are Q-Celtic, and different dialects of Gaulish had different realizations. Pi *g Latin per hour or per gram, depending on its position in the word, and Osco-Umbrian *kh per hour. AB pi *k and *g developed differently in the two italic subgroups, KW, GW in Latin, and PB in Osco-Umbrian. ABC pi *k *g have three reflexes in Greek dialects such as Attic and Doric: t, d, th before e acute I, k, g, kh before u, p, b, ph before a, o. However, in Mycenaean Greek, *kw remained, and in Aeolian, it became p. ABCDEFGHI pi *k*g were originally reflected in Balkan languages as spirants th and th, later in Albanian turning into per second z. AB the Phrygian evidence is limited and often ambiguous, so the issue of centum versus satem reflexes is not completely settled, but the prevailing opinion is that Phrygian shows centum reflexes along with secondary palatalization of k to ts and per gram to dz before front vowels, as in most Romance languages. See Phrygian language #phonology. AB Proto-Germanic reflexes of Indo-European voice stops had spirant allophones retained in intervocalic position in Gothic. This is the reflex after nasals. The outcome in other positions is disputed and may vary according to phonetic environment. See the note in Grimm's Law in detail. Indic languages, C represents a palatalized S sound. AB pi *g Proto-Indo-Iranian *dzjh Indic per hour Iranian z. In Slavic languages, yielding ts, at least under most circumstances. AB in Slavic languages, usually becoming *y initially, lost intervocalically. AB in Slavic languages, yielding simple w. In P-Celtic, Osco-Umbrian and Aeolian Greek, *kw and gt, p. That may be due to contact, perhaps in the Balkan region in the 2nd millennium BC. The same p also occurs in Hittite in a few pronominal forms.